What a great tour. The summary can be found in the timestamps for the video, but I'd like to point out a few things. Through Maggie's daily tag, she has a field for what's on her mind. This makes it really easy to scan through the list and see how that's changed over previous weeks. We show an advanced way to set it up, which is how she originally set it up, as well as a simpler way to capture similar benefits. Her writing pipeline is gorgeous. Generally what she's doing there is tagging any writing idea she has with a pattern or garden note. These notes can come from anywhere. Maybe the idea came up in a meeting, maybe while taking notes on a source, or maybe while journaling. These notes have a field for stage, think to do, in progress, published, and motivation level. So she writes up a query for nodes tagged with garden note or pattern, displays as cards, groups by stage, and sorts by motivation. So you'll just have to see it to get a sense for it, but you could use the same workflow for writing pipeline, for task lists, for job applications, whatever. She also likes to use fields as prompts. She does this to think through decisions more clearly, as well as to write better introductions for blogs and presentations. On top of her workflows, she likes to use tags and fields for just about anything. For example, travel plans. She's excited about the addition of ontologies into Tools for Thought, allowing Tana to merge a graph based outliner with structured objects that have types, as well as AI augmentation, similar to her work with Elicit. She suggests that new users start with a project and think about what they want to get out of their system. Without any further ado, here's the first of many Tana tours.
For a little bit of background for people, like who are you? What do you do? Why do you
Yeah.
use tools for thought and personal knowledge management?
Yeah. Hopefully this is on the video, but my name's Maggie. I am about to start working at a company called Aut, which make a product called Elicit, which is machine learning and natural language processing to help academics and researchers essentially be more effective and more efficient in their research, help people do open-ended reasoning.
Hmm.
It's a research lab, very much like kind of just exploring that space.
Yeah.
I've been involved in whatever we're calling it, tools for thought, note taking, personal knowledge management, like every buzzword, for like 2.5 years. Like I was very early to Rome research, as were you. I feel like we started the
Hmm.
exact same week was what we found out.
Right.
Um, and I used Rome for 2 years, like intensively. I mean, it was one of those where like when I would track it, right, it's like at least 3 or 4 hours a day. It was just my primary database. I used it just to mostly I do a lot of writing online, so a lot of my knowledge management systems are focused on a very
Hmm.
specific kind of output, which are essays and kind of design patterns. I write about a lot, so I'm a UX product interface designer, like some mix of those
Hmm.
things. So I write about that field in specific, visual programming, developer education, like interface design, on my personal site. And so all the things I do in note taking apps are directed at that, as well as professional stuff. So, like research that relates to my job, trying to
Yeah.
problem solve issues at work. Those are kind of my two main use cases for it. So, my system is like designed to serve those needs and not anything else, I'll say.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, and what would you say attracted you to Tana? Like, why is it like you used Rome so much? Why is it that like Tana is now, scratching enough of an itch for you that you've been like using it as your main driver?
Yeah. So even from like the very beginning of using Rome, there was a core piece missing, that I'm kind of surprised it has taken this long for like note-taking tools to catch up with and for people to implement,
Hmm.
and that is ontologies, essentially, or we could call them schemas, but essentially structured types in a system. So a book
Hmm.
type, a person type, a company type. There are a couple of apps doing this now, and Tana was when I first saw it, when I realized that it was so structured around having these ontologies or types that you could use. That was what made me
Hmm.
be like, oh, we wanted this the whole time in Rome. Like we all tried to do it with attributes. And I had this like really hacky way of trying to put the type in the name of the each like page node. And you could never really query it nicely the way you wanted to. You could
Yeah.
never really like properly use it. It was like trying to implement an ontology in a system that wasn't designed for ontologies. Um, so from the beginning, that was like a frustration. And my
Mm-hmm.
last job was with Hash, which was a company which was working on an ontology-based block editor, like a knowledge management tool. And so that really got me invested in it as well. That made me start thinking much more about ontologies and the semantic web, like that legacy
Yeah.
and how that might influence note-taking apps. So that became like, I was just then became obsessed with looking for other companies that were trying to do the same thing. And then, yeah, when I found Tana, I went, oh, this is a really well implemented version of this.
Cool. Cool. Well, maybe then let's just get into it, and take a look a little bit at what sorts of ontologies and types you've incorporated into your own system.
Sure.
How you
Okay,
use
so
that.
I'm going to share screen here. All right. Are we seeing Tana?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So for people maybe who don't have context, actually, I'll go up to my main graph, like homepage. It's a bit different to Roam, right? Where Roam is like everything is the daily page and there's nothing else except for unless you really did work in like individual pages. I like that Tana has this like homepage, which is kind of your main entry point, but then you also have pages for every single day that you. So I'm going to go to today, and actually I have to do the switch calendar thing because I'm doing something
Mm-hmm.
weird with graphs here, where this is technically my main graph, but there's a thing it doesn't do that I want it to do, which is why I'm in the secondary graph down here. But this is my main graph. I can explain that later. And the way I have so this is like a day type that you can configure.
Mm-hmm.
They're called super tags in Tana. I'm just going to move like zoom Chrome out the way. Hold on a second. And you can say what you want your, sorry, I've lost my mouse. This is going, well, there we go. You can say like, these are default content that will appear on every single one of my day pages. So I use 3 basic ones. I have a time log where I just note down in incredibly loose ways, like what I might be doing that day, if anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty, I'm on holiday right now, so there's very little in here, which is great. A very quick what's on your mind, which I used in Roam. This is essentially what I did in Roam too, so I just ported this
Mm-hmm.
over. A very high level, like what are you thinking about, which I find that useful to be able to look at later. So I have this page here called What's on Your Mind, and what this does is this is a view of all my days so far and what I've written in What's on Your Mind. So then I can kind of scan it and be like, what have I been thinking about, which is like always very useful.
Oh, that's
Um,
super cool. Can you just like real quick, just tap on that live query right there, just so we
yeah,
can see what's behind this?
yeah.
Okay, yeah, so this seems like it's fairly simple one. So has tag day. What's happening here?
Yeah, actually, I
What?
had never clicked on this before, so I'm not sure why. Oh, I know what I did. Okay, so this
Okay.
is saying everything in and has to be true, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually not sure what has tag is. I might even get rid of that one. I'm trying to
Yeah.
remember when I wrote this. Could have been ages ago. It is saying that I have actually defined what's on your mind. So, okay, this actually is going to get us into like that. Let's go back to Dave for a second at this configure super tag. Sorry, I'm getting into the deep stuff quick. I'm sorry. Hopefully people have watched tutorials before this. Sorry, we're
Oh,
going
that's
deep.
fine.
I can set okay, so actually let's slow down there. I just hit Command K, which opened up this, what do we call this, the command line menu.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite features in Tana is I can define default content on this page, but I don't always have to fill these in because I don't always want to fill them in there. Like the vast
Mm-hmm.
majority of the time, these fields that I put on any tag are entirely optional, and I like to be able to conditionally add them. So I have this thing where I can set the hide field conditions to say never show this field, always show it, only show it when empty, or only show it when not empty. So I use hide when empty for almost everything.
Yeah.
And then when I want to add it, so actually if I go to like, if we go to today and then we go to tomorrow, right, so here, this is what it looks like when you haven't added them yet. So tomorrow I will click that and like da. So that brings us back to the what's on your mind thing with the live query, where only if I have added what's on your mind with that little plus, so it is defined on that day, will it show it. Otherwise we'd have a bunch of blanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's interesting is I think that you could just have the what's on your mind field and defined there in that query, and I think it would pull up the same results.
Let's try. Okay.
Okay.
because actually that other stuff might be junk. I'm trying to remember what in the world I was doing. I was probably trying to like hack around with things that I shouldn't have been attempting. What's on your mind? So let's say, let's try run once and see if this is going to do it. Done. Yeah, actually I'm not seeing that. Oh, I'm seeing some blanks. Oh, those seem to be a bit, maybe those are errors. There's some funny stuff like in here. Like I'm not sure what this is, but sometimes you end up seeing like bits of the underlying system rise up, which is totally fine. Like we actually see the day tag show up in here, but like that one's empty, so like that might have been one.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it is great because like I'm now seeing this big gap in between these 2 days, and I'm betting it's because the days before this did not have what's on your mind defined. No, it's almost every single day. Okay, maybe I've been writing it more than I thought. Don't always fill it in. Like this one's empty. Yeah. So actually,
Yeah, so even with that
probably...
simple query, even with that simple query, you can get something like this. It doesn't need to be complicated, right?
Nope.
Although maybe you were playing around with something at the time that was interesting. We're actually going to this will be coming out fairly soon, but we're going to be adding like just simple filters on the table views. So like it should be pretty easy for you to just say like to filter out empty what's on your mind field nodes.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think I have it more often with time log. So this is similar. Time log is one of the things I have on my day page. And there'll be empties. I bet you that's not the only empty though. It seems to be filtering out ones that aren't empties.
So that's your day. You can like, what's cool about that is you can like very easily pull up these like create these like tables out of like what was your time log just across your entire time using Tana just by having a consistent ontology, I guess, for your day of fields.
Yeah, I'll go to show this one that's like why I love these dynamic views. So a bit of context. So this is me tracking my writing, which is again like I would say at the moment the focus of what I'm doing in Tana, only because I'm on between jobs for a month before I start my new role. So I was trying to like get more writing out in the meantime of all these things I have in my backlog. So I write 2 types of things on my website: garden notes, which are just kind of like essays or notes, and then what I call a pattern, which is defining a very specific design pattern about something.
Yeah.
So like I just published one yesterday called Folk Interfaces, which is sorry, I'm probably going too fast here.
No, this is fine. Keep going.
Okay, cool. So yeah, a pattern. I also like you can put like definitions on things in Tana. So I have this thing called a pattern, and it says a pattern is an organically emergent solution to a common design problem. This is like a Christopher Alexander thing. And I write patterns that I find on my website. And so I have these like kind of elaborate list of fields on this type. So I have a creation status. So like, is it an idea? Am I ambiently researching it? Am I actively synthesizing it? Or is it alive and public, which means it's on my website and I like will continue to tend it over time. So this one's an idea stash. I have a public growth stage. That's like once I have put it on my website, I then have a 3-level ranking system saying like if it's a seedling, it's like I've just kind of like chucked some stuff up and it's not that well done. Budding is like half grown and evergreen, right? I'm like, this is pretty good. Like this is like pretty much done. I have a personal motivation thing. So number 1 is like I was born to write this, like I have to write it. Number 2 is like that's a good idea, and 3 is like meh, I like not really sure about this one. And then in these ones I don't have any like default data filled in, but for every pattern I want to be able to make sure I define that it's probably easier to look over here. The problem, so what problems consistently emerge in this context that like leads to this pattern, what's the context it is developed in, related to is a field I have on almost every single type I have, which just says what does this relate to. That could be concepts, evergreens, other pieces of writing, people, companies, whatever you want. And solution, so I put that at the top. So like this is the solution to this problem in this context of a pattern. And then I do a little bit of tracking things like research notes, main points, and like things to research in here. Also, sorry, can you still hear me? My audio is telling me that it's being strange.
Yeah, your audio sounds fine.
Okay.
Cool. Sorry, my AirPods are like infamously crap, as everyone's AirPods.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so one of the things that I'm already seeing that just like is cool about this, right? Like you can create tables or Kanban boards out of like any of any of this data, right? Like so like you
Yeah.
can so like if you want to figure out like, okay, what things should I be writing about? You know, you can just like create a little query for just personal motivation, you know, and
Yeah.
then have it grouped by the result. And then right there, you just like see all the things that you are best suited to write. Like,
Yeah, I do that on the, sorry, we got here from this page, which is me tracking my
yeah.
process. So I have it grouped by stage of like which ones, so I should be paying attention to this. This is like my actively synthesizing stage. I also have these sorted by personal motivation first. So if I just reapply that sort, so you'll see here, like
Cool.
I was born for this comes up first, and then we get into good ideas and their ideas. So this kind of goes down the list. So like things that are way down here, I like might never write meh, but like things up here I should be paying attention to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so but then we can do the grouping by personal motivation rather than creation status. So then we get those. Yeah, so this is where I really love these, like you can show this whole thing as a list, again still grouped. You can show this whole thing as a table, which like exposes a lot more of the information. You'd have to like hide a bunch of these things for this to actually be useful. But I like the card view personally. It just like helps with grouping, but this dynamic grouping is really nice. Right, I can do it by like comma growth stage, right? So I can kind of see, and I filter out evergreens on this too in the live query, because if it's evergreen, I have so many of them, it just kind of clutters up the board. I'm unlikely to touch them, so I just filtered those out. But those would be there. But this like gives you a nice dynamic overview of kind of like the status of all your pieces of writing.
Yeah, that's really cool. And like I think that this just it shows one of the key strengths of Tana, of just like, yeah, this combination of like the graph-based structure alongside structured data. Because like once you add this structured data to, you know, your nodes, then that allows you to create these sorts of like dynamic visualizations for you, create like a contextual dashboard that lets you like not just have the information, but put the information through a workflow. So I'm curious, like, okay, if you expand out one of if you expand out one of these notes, what do you see?
Sure. So one thing we can do is we can open it in line, which is kind of handy. Like now we are essentially like on this page, which I could click on this and we're like on the page and can open it up and like see all the content. But I can also just kind of open it from here and see all the same stuff, even in line, which is a bit crazy, which is really cool. You don't get to see backlink references, which I do use a fair amount. Let's actually just minimize that sidebar. Not sure what happened there. It's okay.
One thing you can do is if you go to settings, we've got Tana Labs. We have reference count. If you show reference counter all pages, then that will add a number next to every node that has more than one reference, and you can click on that and it'll show you the back references.
Yeah, so it's funny, I have all the Tana Lab stuff enabled on this instance in Arc because we opened it in Brave. Yeah, it undid them, but I do use that a lot. Yeah, we're just gonna get it to reload now.
Yeah, and maybe you want to go into full screen maybe?
Oh yeah, let's go into this one. So this is a piece I haven't written yet, but that I've like made a whole bunch of notes on, and I've made like a list of like research I need to do. And this is where the backlinks come in. This is like what Rome pioneered and what everyone ended up copying essentially, but it's really valuable, and I really like that, like the way Tana does it, because you have fields and types, the backlinks are not just a giant dump list of backlinks, which was always the problem is at Rome, is you would end up with like 150 backlinks, and then you kind of are like, well, I'm not quite sure what to do with all these. I certainly can't read them all. You'd have to like pull out information up into the main body. It was kind of tricky to work with. Even just like the color coordination of these and like sectioning them out helps me a lot. So I have this field called source for. So whenever I have like an article, I have a source for, and it'll be like a source for like maybe a garden note and like a pattern, and I can put those in here. And then when I go to those pages at the bottom, I can see everything that is a source for this piece, which is really handy, which is different to related to, which could be like tweets and other concepts and other things that are not necessarily articles and academic papers.
So as a result, it ends up being like a little bit higher signal, too. And what I really like too, if you scroll up a little bit, what I really like too, and just what I've noticed in my own experience using this, is just having these fields and using that as a big way that I relate concepts together has created something where just like navigationally, it's easier for me to get from where I am to where I want to be.
Yeah, or honestly, I even love it just as a prompting device. Even like if I go to my patterns page, and like let's say we want to define a new like design pattern here, right? I don't know what we're gonna call it. Colored tags. It's not new, but whatever. That's our new design pattern. It immediately prompts me to like decide what my personal motivation level is for this. Define what the problem is, define what the context is, define what I think the solution that this like describes is. Like it makes me, or like real world examples, it makes me fill in these fields. So it's like giving me a template to think within, which is what I find the most useful about any ontology based system, is it just gives you that structure up front. So you're not always doing the labor of like, okay, what do I need to think about again if I'm doing this?
Yeah, totally. And in that way, it can help you think through things more clearly too.
Like I did an experiment with introductions, like so I made this field for introductions, and I was like, well, how could I help myself get better at writing introductions? And I had read a paper which I really loved, which I think I might have, I wonder if it's still in my Roam or if I did port it over. Problems rhetoric. So actually what you're seeing here too is also like these are backlinks to this is my Roam graph that I have imported in a separate graph over here that it's able to reference. Sorry, we're getting deep. So this is showing me notes from this other paper that's about how you define problems to make them interesting with this paper. And I used the structure that I learned in that paper to talk about writing introductions, where like every interesting problem starts with a destabilizing condition. That destabilizing condition happens within a context, it has consequences, it has an assumed audience. Anyway, it's like this thing where I thought about how I might set myself up to write a really good introduction is by defining these fields first. And by making a tag in Tana, that enables me to then be like, oh, okay, like how would I think about the context of this and what the consequences are?
Totally. Do you find room for free form writing within that?
Yeah, so this was very much just like a more structured approach to it that I would say I wouldn't, it's not like I like whip this tag out every time I want to write an introduction. I mostly don't. But if there's times where I haven't written a good introduction and I like don't know what to say, pulling this out feels like pulling out some sort of like prompt card or something, or some sort of useful tool that I can call when I need it. But it's definitely not like I use this every single time.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm just noticing about how you're using Tana that I just think is very cool, and that I think other people should note, is that you're really like, you sort of like started with thinking like, what types of things do I have in my notes, and then from there, just like creating those tags. A lot of this structure like ended up like easy to create. Like if you click on one of these tags, like it already just generates a query for times where you've used that tag, right? Even just going from there, and like there is a little bit of a difference, you know, like with people like you or I who have been using tools like these for years, right? So like we have, so like going into it, we probably already have an idea of some of the things that like we want to turn into things, right? Like for me, I knew going in that claims, questions, and decisions and sources and people, those are all like things that I use that have relations between each other, right?
Yeah.
So I went
Yeah.
in and just created those tags. And then from there, it was like the structure was fairly emergent, you know, and but like, I'm curious, like what advice you would give, new users to develop a system that works for them.
Well, this is interesting. Is there's a page here called Draft Ontology that I made on the first day that I got into Tana and like poked around and realized what it was. And this hasn't ended up being like the exact ontology I use, but it was really helpful for me to sit and write out this list of where I was like, okay, I finally have an ontology system. Like, what things do I make? I know I want, I have people, profession, software, organization, design principle, you know, these things, community. Most of these things have held up. On my schemas page, you can look at after it like shows what I actually have. But on each of these, I kind of started drafting out what my relationships were going to be. These didn't exactly translate over, but it was really helpful for me to attempt to do this first. And then my actual schemas page, so this is schemas, it like lists out all the actual types that you have in your graph. Ended up being much more organic and emergent, which was kind of the plan. It was like I got started with a few that I thought, and then as I went, there were moments where I was like, oh, I like need an airline type because I'm like tracking flights and I like need to know every time I like fly with Virgin, so I like conceal my flights down here. Like this is really useful, like when I've been flying a lot this year, but even just being like, did I like buy a checked bag? Like I forget, like what was the like, you know, like what was the flight number again, because I need that. Like this became really useful.
Right.
So there's things you don't expect that you're going to make types for, and then you end up being like, oh yeah, like I have a bunch of strange ones in here. House for rent, house for sale. Those end up being relevant at some point, you know. Conferences, podcast episodes. It's really fun that I also like how easy it is to make a tag and there's no cost to it. Like I don't see it as like it cluttering up my system. Like there's just things where I'm like, well, I'll maybe only use this like once to like how many times am I really gonna like buy a house? I will only use that tag like for one project, like the attempt to buy a house project. But it's useful for that, and it can just like sit there and it doesn't like invade the rest of my system.
Right. That's really cool. I'm curious about like some of these other you know, like little use cases that have popped up, you know, like just flight tracking. Like I can immediately see that being useful, and that's not something people usually think of when they think like, oh, tools for thought, Zettelkasten, Evergreen notes, like whatever, right? But like that coexists, you know, with your system, right? So like I'm curious what sorts of other things coexist.
Interesting. Well, I haven't used Decision as much as I want to, but I know you're big on this, so I would love to kind of like hear or see how you're using it at some point. I don't have many in here, but it was really useful for really stupid small ones. I had a debate with my partner about whether I should buy an ice cream maker, but it was a good test of this decision tag. So I went, okay, what's my reasoning? I have some research notes on it. I have like a working hypothesis, so like my best current answer to this decision question. Right, what are the costs? What are the benefits? What are the known unknowns, which are in themselves questions, which have their own working hypotheses in them and like reasoning. So like even this like silly kind of example, I found it really helpful to just like think through it in this structured way. Some of them are bigger, like should we buy a house? Like that is actually really useful, and I like had to do a bunch of thinking in here about like how much it costs to like you know, mortgage rates and like what the average prices are around us, and how much you pay just brokers to like get the whole house like even set up. Anyway, the current working hypothesis is not right now, but this was super helpful to think through all these tiny like questions on like there's so many smaller ones in here, like what taxes would you pay, like would it be cheaper to buy and rent over a 10-year period, anyway, that was the one that like I didn't go into Tana being like, this is going to help me answer it's kind of like outstanding logistical questions about my life.
Right.
But that turned out to be really great.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And like this here, like it's not something that you know, like viewing a table of all your decisions and seeing should we buy a house in London right next to, you know, like some product decision for something you're working on for illicit, like that isn't necessarily useful. But like what is useful is thinking through this in like a structured way, like just the way that, you know, you have this hard decision where there's like a lot of things that are like kind of fuzzy, and just like figuring out, okay, what are the component questions that I need to answer in order to get to the point where I feel like I have a good decision here, you know, and breaking it down that way is valuable.
Yeah. Like I mentioned, I haven't used decision as much, but questions I had questions in my old Roam graph that I used extensively. So those ported over quite naturally.
Yeah.
But it's the same principle, right? It's really useful to be able to like put in working hypotheses, research notes, reasoning, say what it's related to, connect things up, like tracking questions. I know you're huge on this, like is like one of the most important pieces of thinking you can do is constantly tracking whether you've answered them, whether you have good working hypotheses, like how confident you are in those answers. That's all really valuable stuff.
Yeah, totally. And like part of why I think it's so useful is one, I think questions are one of the most helpful organizational primitives of like anything in investigative work. You know, like I organize all of my claims and evidence like in terms of what questions they're relevant to, you know, especially when I have formed those questions ahead of time. But like also, you know, as your own Tana workspace matures and you put more and more things into it, then you can start translating these questions into queries and pull up things that might have been helpful to you before you even thought of creating the question, you know, because like the normal mode is, oh, you know, like I can reference this question on all blocks that might be helpful towards answering the question, and that's useful. But like, what about all this stuff before you came up with the question? Just write a query that will pull it in.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm even like curious to see how other people end up structuring their relationships to questions, because that's one I know I'm not confident in my approach yet.
Okay, so going into the last leg here, I guess like what would you say you're most excited about for the future of Tana and tools for thought?
I'm excited about this move towards ontology-based apps. There's like a couple of them coming out, but I haven't seen any that nail the UX the way Tana has, which is why I love it and why I'm so like quite certain I'm gonna commit to it. I had gone into this being like, I'm gonna do a scoped experiment for a month and see how Tana feels, and now I'm like, okay, I would stay in this system. Like, it's great. And also the fact that I also have an escape hatch. I did say, I told the Slack that was important to me. This download as JSON is very important to me. I can get out of here if I need to, but like I don't want to. So that's a good thing. You're like not holding people hostage or letting them voluntarily be part of your app. Of
course.
So I find that exciting. I'm definitely biased in that because I'm now at like an AI and ML company, bringing machine learning assistance into tools for thought, I'm very, very bullish on. Like, obviously, GPT-3 is still like in its nascency. We haven't really figured out how to use it well, or just like a generative transformers in general. But bringing those into here and being able to interact with a system that can help me think, help prompt me, help things like rewrite them, just help me generate new kinds of thoughts I wouldn't have been able to do on my own. I'm excited to see that bit of the industry develop. And I'm not quite sure how these all tie together, like the established systems like this, but I don't think it's a far cry to bring something like that into something like here.
Yeah. My theory is like, you have people that are exploring the extreme end of, you know, with AI, we don't need to require the user to do anything in structure because the AI can handle it all. And I think that it's useful to have people exploring that extreme, but like, I believe that the correct outcome will be somewhere like give users the ability to create structure and create data that is machine readable, and then the AI is going to be able to do a lot more. You know, and I think that Tana gives you really powerful tools for creating this structure like on the fly, out of nowhere. You know, and it's all in a tree. And that tree has items that has nodes that have fields and properties on it, you know. So like I'm excited to see that direction, and I'm also excited to see the Elicit plugin that might or might not happen in the future.
Yeah, that would be great. That's all I really need in here. Like, I haven't found a great way to integrate academic articles as much yet, but I'm kind of like waiting to see how that side of things plays out, because like something like a Zotero plugin or Elicit or both of those combined, like that would be key.
Yeah, totally. And then what advice would you give to new users of Tana?
It depends so much on what they want to do for it. I mean, my first piece of advice is like, make sure you know what you want from the system. Like have a purpose, like you are outcome focused. Like it is easy for me to know how to structure this because I know what I want out of it. It's like I want to like write pieces that are well researched pieces of writing and track questions and problems that I'm working on at work. I think if you went in here without a clear definition of like what kind of things you are producing from it or how it's going to help you be more, I don't want to use the word more productive, to create better things, then it might be a bit like, well, like how do you structure that? So have a clear goal, and then probably just start simple. Like make a couple tags, like don't think too much about it. Make a person tag, make a company tag if those things matter to you. Like don't try to make all your tags up front. Like start putting things in and then like figure out what tags you need as you go.
Yeah, because clearly you can just create tags as you go too, like as shown by the way that you just created a tag for airlines, and then suddenly you were able to create a table out of, you know, your flight data, right?
Yeah, my favorite tag is the meme tag. I only have one meme in here so far, but I was so excited to make the meme tag. I like tweet tags, but I was like, yeah, I can now collect memes because I have a meme tag. This is new, but
nice.
You can take literature notes on memes.
Oh, nice. And that probably is appealing to the digital anthropologist in you, right?
Yeah. I want like a whole beautiful card table of memes and their meanings in here at some point.
Yeah.